I have been in education as a teacher, teaching at the grade school level from grade 4 to 8, and then at the high school level, secondary school level, and that was, from grade 9 right to grade 12. So, thinking about that, I can sort of describe, I guess, what I thought was good and maybe what wasn't so good. But then I think I would also like to share with you overall my own experience with family and the community, looking at education in terms of learning. What did I learn? How did I learn it? So, from those two perspectives. And to start with, I'll talk about family and what I learned, just growing up on Lukwemikong, unceded territory, because I was born there and always lived there until I left to go to North Bay to St. Joseph's College. But my earliest memories of, learning would be with being with my mother, her sisters, my aunts, and grandmother, and all the various things that they did in their everyday life. And just being part of that, I was learning. So, learning about survival, survival when I would watch my grandmother and my aunts planting, for instance. And they always had gardens, always had vegetables. So from there, I learned, because I was always involved in part of it. So I learned how to be specific in terms of planting, and then when the planting, then the harvest, and the big production of bringing in all the vegetables, and have to sort them out and store them away from the winter, because they always did that. My grandmother had one of those big root cellars and had to have her own vegetables for the winter. So lots of turnips, potatoes, carrots in sand, all that kind of stuff. And that would take quite a while to sort of explain and go through. But being exposed to that and learning, and they didn't say, okay, no, this is what you do. You were just involved and you learned, eh? And then they would say, oh, well, we have to put this down really deep because these ones here will be for later on. The top ones, they would put certain vegetables at the top because those would be the first ones. And they'd be talking away. And this is learning to me. And then learning how to take care of the chickens, and, that would be another part. Gathering eggs and keeping the coops clean. And then, there were cows there and horses. And that's all part of, I guess, life learning, which would be our way of learning, conveying from one generation to another. And within that, then you also pick up the principles of living. We talk about the 7 grandfather teachings now. In those days, we didn't say that you had to respect your elders and respect others, or you love each other, or always tell the truth. But it was practiced in the way that you were exposed to certain things and how you were encouraged to act. And, and to me, that's more important. That's the best way of learning. And that stays with you, it's always with you. So if you pick that up, then you always have those principles that guide you, to a good way of living. Right now, we hear the traditional people say, have to work every day. First of all, give thanks, for all that we have received, and then look at what is around us and understand that we have to protect, take care of our environment, take care of the water. And as women, that's our responsibility. But you don't sit around and talk about it, you did it every day. And that stays within you. So then, as you're growing up and you're dealing with your children, your family, and others, you automatically do it. And so that's why I think that's the best form of learning. And and then when we think about truth and honesty, if you're dealing with your family, I guess as kids you will try and get away with stuff, but and the elders, your teachers, they know they'll let you get away with some stuff, but not everything, because they always know, and they'll fill you in, and then you realize you can't get away with certain things, and so you change it, and that's another form of learning. And I've tried to do that with my children, just in our everyday living, how we approach things, just convey those values. And I think they're doing really good. Like Nimke, he's a teacher now, and he likes doing outdoor education, land based learning, it's called, which is once again those old, I shouldn't say old, but they're our way of living and learning as Indigenous people. And then I have Mimi, who has always been promoting the role of women, and she has done excellent in that respect, and has always been very principled. Doesn't condone any kind of fraud or misrepresentation in the organizations that she's part of, because we see others who fall into it so quickly, and it's devastating to see our women do that. And then also our interaction with each other. And in that context, then she's talking about how we were taught and how we were brought up and what she's learned. And she's really talking about stopping violence against women and girls, which is really good. Because some of these young girls, they don't have anyone to trust. But she's there and she can do that. And in her role right now, she's also at the university level, she's head of Indigenous learning at Trent University. So that's good in that respect. So she's got the academic, and then she's got the other aspect of our traditional way of learning and teaching. And she's there, and she does it by example. So, that's good. So I feel really content that my children are doing good and living that way of life. And then my youngest is he's in Thailand right now, but he ended up there through working for the United Nations in Save the Children, because he was working with refugees, and he was so committed, to working with families and who have nothing, and he used to break his heart. He said, but he did what he had to do, which is to ensure their safety, provide water and shelter, and as part of his job, that's what he was doing. So to me, they've learned, and so I feel good about that, about that way of learning. So I guess just to what I'm, I guess, trying to convey is I think that way of learning is it stays in you for life, and it's always ongoing, and it keeps evolving, and you keep learning. Well, I didn't finish my first one though. No, I know. Did you want me to do that? Okay, and so the other aspect, that's just sort of everyday life. The other aspect is just the within the regular education system, in the school system. I think because I was part of it, and for the first 5 years of my education within the schools, and it was right on the reserve, run by the Sisters of St. Joseph, like the nuns were our teachers, eh? My mother was also a teacher, and my aunt, and my daughter. So my sister, we're all teachers. But I had a learning disability. So, and I know this happens to many of our young people, we have these learning disabilities from our indigenous minds, I guess, whatever. And I couldn't learn anything for the first 5 years. I couldn't write, couldn't spell, couldn't read until one Sister Veronica, sort of took me and got me aside in a special class and sort of focused on certain things like writing and maybe reading or something. But it changed my mind completely. So in 1 year, I went from zero, getting grades, right to 90s, 98, 99. So by the time I went back to grade six, I was getting 90s. Then I was coming first in the class. But I think if we could find a way within our academic teaching to look at those students I see in the school system now, many of them I think are bumping up against that. They want to learn, and they, but there's something that's missing the way we're teaching, and I think we need to do more research, find out what is it, because that nun was able to do it in 1 year to get me from zero. And when we had our spelling, I was always at the end of the line because I couldn't spell and no one wanted me on their team. I couldn't read. And I see some students right now, and they are the behavior problems. They're acting up simply because they're not able to grasp the concepts, whether it's in writing or reading or math or science, but they need their brains, some sort of exercise, different way of teaching. And if research could be done to figure that out, I think many of our students would benefit from that and we'd have a lot more success. We still have some going right through and they can do it, but just to do some research in that area. I think there's young people, like you and others who could really explore that. Then I think we'd be able to get many more of our young people through the regular academic levels, and go on to university. Because we need to have our young people within the sciences, within the health system, within the academic courses. That's important too. But we can have both, I believe. Yeah. There's another aspect of who we are as a people that I'm beginning to realize as I go to different teachings. And, I've been going to clan teachings at the Anishinaabe Nation, where, all the clans are explained and the roles of the clans, and you go through the colors and where you fit in all that. And once you know that, then it's starting to make sense to me when we look at the various clans and their roles, like the role of people who are in like the fish clan kind of thing, and they have specific roles that they should do. And you look at the people who are in that clan, and you see those personalities and those skills and those abilities, and they do come through. And then you see others who are in the, well, maybe people in the bear clan, and from what I see in reading is that they're the medicine people, and you see that they gravitate towards medicines and the herbs and plants and working with others and healing. And I've seen that my people in my clan, it's in the bird. My grandmother used to talk about a black bird, seeing a black bird around her, and others would see it. So to me, we are in the bird clan, and then they would talk about a black hawk. So when you look at the various clans, then that would be the bird clan. And then the skills and abilities there too are like negotiators, almost like peacemakers, and speaking out. And then I think just when I look back at my life, I sort of got put in different situations where I had to start speaking and saying something and doing something to provide justice, make a change. And that's how my life has turned out. But it's pushed me into that role of advocating for other Indigenous women and then looking at rights of our people, at human rights and Indigenous rights for our people, right up to the United Nations level, coming from the reserve. So I believe that's who we are. And if we follow uh, our role within our clans, that makes it worthwhile. And to me, I firmly believe this. And if we all would study our clans, see what the roles are, and really try and do what those teachings tell us and live that way, I think we'd have a more satisfying and happier life. So that's another aspect of education from for us as Indigenous people. I think we would have a good opportunity, as educators, as a community, to develop our own, well, not only looking at our own curriculum, but our own approach to Indigenous education, which would combine our traditional way of living together and learning, and also look how our own mindset works, through ceremonies, because we go through sweats and we have visions through sweats, and we could have our guardians come, to help go through all that and learn all that, because that brings out your own strengths and your own abilities. So we could have all that, but also be able to look at opportunities in the modern world, which would be in technology, science, and the healthcare system. And we could, I guess, assist our young people to move into those roles. If they're, for instance, in the Bear Clans, and their role would be looking at plants and healing. Well, let's encourage them academically. They can go through that. And then others who are more the negotiators, the peacemakers, and encourage them. Maybe they would be our uh, politicians, the leaders, and if they would learn the qualities of leadership, the good qualities of listening and learning and hearing, then they would be those traditional leaders and what they were noted for, and not get, well, what happens when people are in leadership and they're just there for themselves making it, and that doesn't work, but but anyways, if we could have an education system developed by us to incorporate all that, but not just one separated from the other, could be combined, and it could also be that land-based learning. So young people, they could go out into the wilderness and survive, develop that respect for trees, develop that respect for animals, for the water, make sure the water is clean, care for the fish, care for all the things that are on the water. And then they would also know our stories connected with all that, because that would have been incorporated somewhere. If we could have something like that. And technology, I believe we are here and technology is all around us. I don't think we should just throw it aside. Even what you're using right now, it's a way of recording, it's a way of using what's around. I believe the Creator is glad that we can use some of this for our own work with each other and not just push it aside. And looking at everything else, our medicines and the plants. It's that would be my vision, anyways, and we could have people experiencing that. And it doesn't have to be just, okay, you go into the grade one and just that way, and others. Yeah. So We could have our own educational system right from kindergarten right up to masters and doctorates within our own. Yeah. And those people would be the leadership in our communities. Yeah. Lots of times funding maybe isn't the most crucial aspect of achieving something. I think from what I've seen, especially with our women's organizations, it's that vision and determination to do it and to pull people together. And once you get to two or three or several people who are those visionaries and the doers, pull them together, and they can do it. They can develop, any of those. What I don't want to say institutions. They would develop centers of excellence, learning excellence, and have all that incorporated into it. But you need to get a group of people together, and even get some outsiders, from non-indigenous people to collaborate and work together, so we don't have to start right from scratch. If they already stuff out there, let's use it, yeah. But because there's lots of people out there doing stuff right now, but we need to go and search what is good, what isn't, and somehow or another keep our people out of conflict with the law. If they have that sense of wanting to do something and making something good for themselves, maybe they won't get into so much conflict or be so down on themselves that they do get in conflict with the law. And because our institutions are full of our people, they don't have to be there. If we could get them out and do some of that being in touch with nature, and find who they are, and maybe they can go on a different path. And I'm sure those resources are there if we could get our people in there, and the ones who are in those institutions not be written off. But I'm sure many of them are young. Get them out, and they could have a fulfilling life as well. Whatever put them there, probably not their fault, but give them opportunities, I guess.